Hey everyone, welcome to a video edition of Conscious Beauty Talk. I'm Amy Wall and I'm joined by my co-host Emilee Fernandes. And we
Hi.
have a very special guest, Aliesh Pierce, with us today. So welcome, ladies. And today we're going to have a conversation about race, a conversation about women, and a conversation about the beauty industry and really what it's like to be Black in beauty. Aliesh is going to be the first in our series of conversations with Black women beauty entrepreneurs. And it's really our intention and on our heart that these conversations can open up a space of change, a space of shared compassion for our experiences, and really a shift in the way that we treat Black skin in the treatment room and in the world. So let's do that. Let's let this conversation be tendrils of change that go all the way around the world, and it can start right here with us. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get started with the conversation, I just wanted to introduce Aliesh. She's a very special beauty veteran, and she's been in the business for over 30 years. And she served as the personal makeup artist and skin therapist to celebrities like Eva Mendes, Ming Na Wen, India Ari, and the Obamas. And since the day her then client India Ari prompted her to create a purpose statement, she knew she was here to help women create their own unique definition of beauty, and men too. So she helps estheticians master a multi-ethnic approach to skincare, and it really is the only way to be of service to an ever-changing, increasingly diverse population. Wow, Aliesh, what a history.
Yeah, I had some time while I'm quarantined to reflect over my career, and I thought I've made some interesting pivots over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pigmentation 101 is the course that everyone should be taking. If you're watching this, and she's going to be on the radio show next week as well. But that's going to be a really great place to really start getting to know the different colors of skin, the different ethnicities, and how to treat them. But before we go there, let's take it back to being Black in beauty, and really, how can we start shifting the conversation and shifting even just the language that we use in the treatment room? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and go wherever you'd like to start.
Well, I mean, it starts with conversations like this, being open, being willing to be vulnerable and express our feelings, whether they come out right or fumbled. I think at the end of the day, it's real human connection that's needed, and that's not always perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just being willing to say, I don't know, and I may have screwed up in the past in attempting to forge, relationships. That's the key, I think. And then that, along with being willing as estheticians, it takes putting ourselves purposefully, intentionally in a place of discomfort. My coaching clients, I give them a case study so that they have anywhere from 1 to 3 models that they work with over a 3-month period to really get a true understanding of the client's skin, how it reacts, how to build a peel protocol. But really my agenda deep down is so that client, that student gets an understanding of their client's skin. And once you have a picture of one group, you can then start to get an appreciation for everyone else in that group. That becomes your marker. And say, okay,
because depending on where you're from, around the equator, every ethnicity has a different sensitivity, a different way that it responds, and it's not enough to group
everyone
people into shades.
Yeah, it's really not. And I've presented a TED talk about 1.5 years ago, a TEDx talk, and it was all about melanin and how that really is the one thing that binds us all together. And I think that idea of how different we are, there's the Human Genome Project actually stated that they found more differences within each ethnic group than there was between the ethnic groups. So there are more variances of skin tones within the African community than there is, looking at the difference between white and black. White and black. Those are terms that I don't usually use, but.
Okay, yeah, and I want to know more about the terms that you use, because our words are our wand. That's why they call it spelling. I often say that, and it really comes down to, can we have a shared language, and can I hear your language and empathize with you, and then use words that you can hear? And so I really want to get into that. But let's go back just a moment. And I really wanted to reflect upon, and for everybody watching this, the only difference between us is the amount of melanin and or pigment. For those of you that aren't familiar with the word melanin, it's another word for pigment. That's the only difference between us. And yet, the world has all of this stuff going on, and truly we are just a difference of skin tone. And so that just right there, that gets me, because as skin therapists and as estheticians, we are in the business of working with the skin. And so the treatment room really is the first place that we need to start in having equality practices, not discriminating against colors of skin. And that can even be by not having the right products that could treat all shades of skin. It could mean not having the right education about how to really look at and interpret these different colors of skin. So this is like really up for everybody, that it's imperative, if you want to be a preeminent esthetician, that you must learn the language of pigment, and you must learn the language of melanin. So I'm going to help with that.
I appreciate it. And I really think that the discussion, it's easier to have when you get down to the scientific facts. So for estheticians, it takes a lot of the emotional tug out of the conversation. So one of the things that I'm really drive home is that we all have the same amount of melanin. And I feel like that old crotchety man on the front yard, like, I see the hashtag melanated peoples, and I know that it is a way for us to stand apart and celebrate our Blackness, and I love it, and it's incorrect. Every being on the planet is melanated. Every animal, every animal, it has melanin. And so it's just a matter of the amount.
So it's not the amount, it's
the amount of pheomelanin versus eumelanin, and then how they congregate together in sun-exposed areas.
And
melanocyte cells.
And that's to protect us from the sun. So if you're from Africa, you have more, because that's a protection.
More eumelanin, exactly. There's more eumelanin if you're, and then, I mean, for me, that whole story, I worked for an employer, I won't say who, but he was very clear that he believed that God dropped people in every continent when he made, man. And I said, that sounds like a lovely story, but science tells us that Africa is the birthplace of mankind. And when you look at how melanin has adapted, it oxidizes to become lighter. So you can imagine that the journey from Africa to Europe over time, as there's less need for protection, that melanin is coming up over the cell to protect the DNA basically inside the nucleus. So there's less need to do that, more need for sunshine, for vitamin D. And so the skin tone's getting lighter and lighter. So when I read the story of melanogenesis, the whole process, the one thing that science can't figure out is why there's a little shunt in the whole pathway where the eumelanin, it starts out as everything's eumelanin when it starts, but then there's a little shunt in the pathway. And for some reason that science can't explain, this shunt has developed, and the eumelanin goes through the shunt and it blends with either glutathione or cysteine to become pheomelanin, to become the red, yellow pigment that we know as for freckles and red hair and, you know, all of the Nordic, Scottish, Irish, typical phenotypes.
Yeah.
And I just think that takes all of the emotion out of it. I can talk to any white supremacist who says that, you know, God in his infinite wisdom dropped us all in the same place. And then I can show that one little shunt that explains the whole process.
And isn't it so that education, if we know more, it's the ignorance that is fueling a lot of the craziness. It's ignorance. So I really appreciate how you broke that down so succinctly. And I just learned something because I thought it was an amount, you know?
Right.
And so I'll be taking myself over to the course right after this conversation. And it's okay that I admit that I don't know something.
Exactly. I mean, and that's that vulnerability, being willing, you know, first of all, being solid enough in yourself to know that whatever you need to know is going to come to you as you need it. That's just divine intervention. That's the way the law works. And from that place, you can then say, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. You know, I'm in a new area here, and that's okay. I honor those people, because being able to step out of your comfort zone and face a challenge is really that hallmark of, you know, whether someone is able to grow as a human being. You know, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So if you can approach education and your training with an open mind, then you're going to approach every other area of your life that way. So it's a really important skill to develop, I believe.
Beautiful. Emilee, do you have?
Yeah, no, I resonate with that deeply. As I had that moment. So my story is that I went to school, and from school, they took me from school and said, you're the teacher.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, I may be great, but like, I don't have a clue. They were so, yeah, you know, they were so impressed that I had an anatomy physiology background in sports science and movement. That was my specialty. And so it was a complete, you know, it was a complete win for them. They were so excited. And I remember I had to teach something, and I straight up said to the class, I am sorry, but I actually do not understand this. I am going to go home and I am going to learn the shit out of this, and I'm going to come back and do better. And I wish now that my very first class that I ever taught was able to take my class now, because the difference in everything that I went ahead to learn and to refine and to seek, because I'm so okay to say, I'm not too sure, but I bet you there's an expert out there. And that's actually how I found you and your programming, was that I didn't feel confident. And I live in an area that is, you know, not very diverse. I'll be honest. We don't have a very large range in skins that we're treating. And it is something in my mission now that I have a global academy, to make sure that we're doing everyone, you know, justice. And if I don't have the answers, because there are things that I don't lecture on, and I say, you're going to go read this, and this is going to be, you know, your moment of opening that door, and that person's going to be the point of connection for you. And just connecting in those little experts, I so understand the grace that it takes for people to say, I don't know, and I'm going to do better. And I wish in this industry, I think in my mind, what I could wish for is that more people would agree that they're so unsure about what they're doing, and that there's so much more to learn. Because if we stay curious, and I think that's the one skill I wish everyone in this world would embody more of, is that childlike curiosity to carry on various conversations. You know, we all get upset when our children ask us why. However, you know, that pestering why is the curiosity that we need to carry on with us throughout our lives. And I just wish more conversations like this, so that we could remain curious to find out how we do better. How do we recreate a new system? And what, I guess the question to you is, what does that new system look like? You know, if you could create that new system and you
no
were
pressure, Aliesh.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's totally fine.
400 years in years.
It's totally cool.
Well,
you know, what does that look like?
I thought it'd be nice to kind of like with Emilee's question, and then let's because we're going to keep continuing this conversation on the radio show next week. But the new system. Let's get back in the treatment room and let's talk about the last 50 years of being Black and trying to get African American and possibly, you know, all the different multi-ethnic, all the ethnicities going to get a facial in America, what that has been like. And I feel like that could be the first, like we could really create this new system, because it's not only about the products that are treating different colors of skin. And we touched on that depending on where you come from around the equator, you're going to have different types of sensitivities and different reactions. But just as far as the language, back to the language that we use and how to work on another color of skin with confidence.
Right.
And of course, not only we need to show up with vulnerability and say sometimes that we don't know, and we need to have a mentor like you in our life and a course that we can call upon. But let's think about the vulnerability of the client who is seeking answers and there hasn't been anything available. And we were talking before we started recording, we don't really have a Black-owned, African-American-owned holistic skin line, facial line.
Yeah. There are some brands that are small and starting. Nueke, I'm sorry. There's a neighbor without a muffler.
That's okay. It's through life.
There are some small independent skincare lines that I've come across, and I love them. I wouldn't say that they're the size of, say, a Circadia or Dermalogica, or but they do have great intentions, and I'm making an effort to reach out and connect more.
Okay.
What I think it really takes, though, is that there's a global appreciation for wellness practices around the world. When I wrote the textbook, I had to do some research to get away from that. First chapter is always the history of the spa industry, and it always starts with Queen Elizabeth, or they might mention Nefertiti before they jump to Queen Elizabeth. But I made an effort in my textbook to go back to the earliest record that, at least that I use, that I appreciate, which is Ayurveda. And so understanding that before, Queen Elizabeth discovered that she could put this lead paint on her face to make her look flawless, there were people utilizing ingredients, writing on cave walls about wellness practices. So Europe doesn't have the corner on the market. I do know that, as one example, I had a headbutt, a little confrontation in my Facebook group. I think I told you about it. I was talking about, I reread Advanced Skin Analysis, the pastiche method, and I was going on a rant about how Florence Barrett Hill says that pink skin is the most widely visible skin type, and that it should be seen as normal, it's easily treated, and blah, blah, blah. And I wrote, normally from my perspective, if I see someone who's pink, I'm thinking inflammation, heat, what can I do to calm, they have sensitive skin. And I forgot that Florence was in my group. And so we sparked a really hearty conversation. It was good because she's coming from her perspective in New Zealand. There aren't a lot of Maoris getting, facials, getting European skin treatments. And in my world, I was based in Long Beach at the time. I had such a diverse, multi-ethnic group client base that I rarely saw, blonde hair, blue eyes, pink skin in my practice. So for me, from my point of view, I'm checking for heat. Are they, So two totally different perspectives. But having that conversation, being able to come together, was really helpful. And I think healing, not just for us, but to the entire group. We all got to realize if these two educators can't get it together, then how are they expected to, all be on the same page? So yes, having those open dialogues, understanding that there is a rich history of self-care. Each culture has its own approach, and we need to respect that. Learning something about these treatments, so that and now like gua sha and the roller are also microneedling. All these Asian treatments are so have been becoming so popular, but they've been around for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Totally. We talk about that on the show so much. It's like, if it's trending, then that it's good, but it doesn't. We haven't reinvented the wheel there.
Yeah. So maybe going back to the ancient wisdom. Going back to those ancient, for those of us in the treatment room, going back to that ancient wisdom and having an appreciation for that. And then from there, we can begin to appreciate the culture and start to.
What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about African American skin?
I think one of the biggest, this was an issue I had actually in aesthetic school, still an issue today, is an understanding that Black skin, African American skin, is mixed skin. That's probably the biggest challenge I've had. And I've even had some Black estheticians that I was coaching who had African clients, and they realized, wait a minute, there's something different here. There's the dermis feels a little thicker. And so I think that idea of we have thicker skin, I've heard that echoed for 20 years. And, no, our skin is not thicker. The dermis is thicker because our fibroblast cells are binucleated. So I think maybe that would be the second. The first, that that Black skin can all be grouped into one category. That's the first one. The second would be that Black skin is thick. I like the term coarse and fine, but even that kind of gives a
judgment almost.
Like a judgment of one is better than the other somehow. Yeah.
I feel a judgment with that. Yeah. I think one of the big
fair and dark. How do you what's fair? How is that the equivalent of dark? That makes sense to me.
And even when I say the word light, because my concept of working with the skin, lightness is like a light bulb gets turned on, like the energy of your mitochondria. It's not a shade. So look back to the language. I'm always interested in and I'm learning from you specifically the difference between Black, African American, all this difference. The original Americans were the Native Americans. And then one of the misnomers and the misconceptions that I know that I have come across is that that Black or African American skin should be treated with something very strong, when it's my understanding that the darker your skin is, the more sensitive you are to the sun and to inflammation.
And I like to call it reactive rather than
reactive.
I think Asian people are definitely sensitive. They have a thinner stratum corneum. The form of their hair follicles is perfect for percutaneous absorption. So the products are going a little bit deeper.
Oh, interesting.
They're definitely more sensitive, and you have reaction that way.
Or sensitized even? Sensitized?
They can become easily sensitized, but I think just the innate physiology of their skin lends towards sensitivity.
Like post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation is after you have some inflammation. For the audience, you get a cut or you get a burn and your skin heals back and you see it getting darker. That's what we call post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation in the business. And I know that keloiding can come with that, and that the scarring. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Keloiding is the downside of having, two nuclei. So we have two nuclei.
Oh, we lost
no.
her.
Okay, we'll bring her back. She'll come on back. Oh, this conversation is so good, and I'm glad that we're on video.
I'm so glad. And
I think we need a video show.
I think we should. I almost feel like it could be like another weekly feature. Yeah, it could be perfect.
So the two nuclei, I'm learning a lot, and I can't wait to take Aliesh's course. So for everybody that's watching this video on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, please go get Aliesh's course, Pigmentation 101. I'm going to go ahead and put that up in my link tree for easy access for everybody. So I think that's really the first place to start, because I am supposedly one of the best estheticians in the country via, esthetician of the year and things like that. And I have to admit that I really don't know anything about melanated skin, and it's embarrassing. And I'm gonna change that.
No, I was really glad to take her program and to dive in a little bit deeper into these conversations and understanding more about the processes of melanin and the activity of melanin and how it creates differentiation in the skin and how different skin requires different care. And I think that that's the part of us that makes us magical. She's back.
Okay, that was like a cliffhanger.
It was so good. We're like, wait, hanging on.
Because the two nuclei.
Right. Oh, so yes. The upside of having fibroblast cells that are binucleated is that, we say black don't crack.
Yes.
But the downside is that we tend to get more keloids.
Yes, because there is that beautiful, it's like the wrinkles don't come as often as the pink skin over here. Well, this has been, when you got up there for a second, it's just already, I love the fact that we're on video, and I've learned so much just in this short conversation. And I was saying when you were off that I'm actually really embarrassed that I don't know more. And yet, I think this goes back to education. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's on Emilee and my heart to have a better type of education for estheticians. I work on this for the personal branding and energetics of having the confidence to show up on camera and the confidence to share your medicine with the world, because I always have had this awareness that if we're helping other women love themselves in the mirror, then they can show up and do their great work in the world. And it's like this little domino effect that we can affect change and help women feel comfortable in their own skin. And so.
That's true. It's good work.
It's good work, and it's going to be, I think that I really hope that this can be a part of a long-term conversation with you. And I'm going to put your Pigmentation 101 course up on my link tree. So if you're watching this from my Facebook page or on Instagram or YouTube, you can just see there right in my profile. You could access Aliesh's course right from there. And then we're going to have you on the radio show next week. That will be June 15th at 12 p.m. Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. I hope everybody tunes in, because we have so much more to talk about. We really didn't even get into it too much, but
just the beginning.
Just the beginning.
I love it.
And it starts with having these conversations, and I'm sure that things will percolate for all three of us in this week. And so if our viewers have any questions for you, it'd be great for you to leave a comment. And we look forward just to being a part of tipping the scales for social justice, starting right inside of the treatment room. Let's start there.
Yes.
That's where we can, let's start
where
the
you
corner
are.
of the world where we can clean up this side of the street. Yeah.
I think you hear so often just everyone saying, how do I make a difference? And knowing that the beauty industry is so large, the number of estheticians and wellness practitioners that we've worked with alone the potential for reach, if you look at it from a top-down strategy, how many people can be changed, you know, by having different conversations, by being more open to understanding and education. This is a huge place for a movement to take place. And so I'm really glad that you were able to share with us today, and that we're going to be able to tease this out into next week even, and bring this message forward, I think now more than ever. But of course, like Amy said, cultivating a conversation that needs to be had, you know, forever.
And
It's time to change.
Consciousness means waking up to what's been hidden, unseen, unsaid, unfelt, unacknowledged. And these are the conversations that I'm interested in having if I'm to continue being in the beauty industry. It is no longer enough to operate on the old paradigm of smoke and mirrors and oppression and exclusivity. It's time to be inclusive. It's time to ask questions, and it's time to find out what other people's experiences have been like and are like, so that we can be a part of the change. And it's okay for us to not know and be wrong and feel uneasy and uncomfortable during this too, because I'm sure there's going to be more things that come up. And estheticians, we are so much more than just technicians. We are really stewards of a woman's self-confidence. So it's really a pleasure to be a part of the movement and to be a part of this conversation. And thank you, Aliesh. I look forward to continuing to talk about this next week.
Yeah, thank you for opening up the dialogue. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and we'll see you next week, everyone.